Okay. Lucinda, where I thought we could start this morning, well, first of all, I want to say that we're here with Lucinda Corron, and today is November 7th, 2002. And where I wanted to start this morning is to ask you about your candy making.
Well, that's kind of a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, everything I know about it, I think I learned from my sister, but I don't do anything very well. So we just slap it together.
What kinds of candies do you make?
Oh, I make turtles. That's Bob's favorite. Claims he doesn't like chocolate, but he still likes turtles. And with that, of course, I make caramels to go in the turtle. That's one of the basics. And vanilla cream centers. There's a French center that I like really, really very much, but with my hands the way they are, I can't make them anymore. So I don't try to do those. They're
What's a-
very hard to, see, you make a cream center and you add whatever you want, nuts or coconut. I use a lot of coconut in my vanilla cream centers. I probably the best cookbook I've ever seen on candy is Pope's, and it was published in must have been the 50s, maybe even the 40s, and it isn't in print now. At least I haven't been able to get it. The last one I bought, I think I ordered in Beith when they were still in Elgin, so that's a long time ago. I don't know what else. I I learned a few things from him, and I don't dip very well. I don't do anything very well, but I make boxes of candy for Christmas. I've got a group coming in next week. Well, 3 or 4. That's enough in the kitchen. And I'm going to show them how to let them, because I usually make them for the Ladies' Aid at Christmas time, and they were asking about it. So we're going to start then. This is a little early to start, but you don't want to leave them too long. But I've got a good room in there for candy. That's always cold this time of year.
Which room is that?
That West room,
The sitting parlor?
yeah. Don't use it for anything else, and everybody complains when you open the door to put something in, but it's a good place to. You don't have to take a lot of refrigerator space, and so on. And of course, I make fudge and nougats and simple things that you just cook one day and eat it that day. But it's so good.
You had also been talking about the marble slab from the courthouse, and you used that in candy making. Could you tell us about that a little?
Yes, I use that for kneading. I use it for fudge now. Well, I think I always have. I never was quite sure, even with the thermometer, whether I got the temperature right with fudge. And it's very important to have it right, keep it soft. And I find the marble slab works nicely. You use a scraper and scrape it up. Just knead it for about 10 minutes. It's the same principle as kneading bread, only you just use a scraper and a knife. If I try to make 2 or 3 kinds of filling for creams, I could do it, used to be able to do that. I don't do that anymore. I try to limit the time I have to spend because everything I do is slower.
Mm-hmm.
and it will continue, I suppose, to get slower till I stop.
Where did that slab come from? Where did the marble come from?
I have no idea.
Well, no, you said it came from somewhere here in the county?
Oh, it came from the courthouse. I thought you meant where it came from. Where does marble come from?
I think a lot of the marble is Italian marble. They have quarries in Italy where they cut it out from.
You think a lot comes from Italy?
Yeah, I think so.
Also the Northeast, like Vermont.
They've saying
Vermont?
Yeah.
The only thing I know about it, we have one of these, like the cake you were talking about, tiers that you put in the cemetery for my family, and it came from Scotland. Now, I don't know anything of the history except that.
Could we get rid of that piece of paper? Actually, I'm hearing that sound. Thank you. Sorry.
Oh,
I can hear a little, it sounds like a little mouse.
I'm not sure what's going to happen.
There you go.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Just fine.
So the marble piece came from,
The courthouse. They were doing something over, I don't exactly know what, but they had these big marble slabs, and you saw how big it is. It doesn't quite reach the edges, and it's not very handy. It's handy for cooking. Don't put your china on it. It breaks easily, or the china breaks easily. But if you use the slab for kneading and making pies, it's good for that. So it has lots of uses. And you just put it, a lot of kitchens are putting it in the, I think my daughter said she had one. They had built the house recently. And so I guess other people have found that it works. You always see these marble top tables in the living room or something, but I couldn't quite see making fudge and kneading in the living room, although I might be tempted at this point. That's all I know, Marie, about.
okay. I also wanted to ask if you could tell us again, I mean, we were talking last time a little bit about how the house got built,
Uh-huh.
and I was wondering if you could tell us that story again, and starting with relating the year that this house was built in.
Well, it was built in 1850. That is, he started it in 1850. And he finished it in 1854. And the exterior is all the same, really, except for the porch, which was added on in 1925. Now that's the outside I'm talking about. In appearance, it really, you can see in the pictures I showed you, that one is much like the 20th century. Wait a minute, was that? Yeah, I guess it was still the 20th century when that was made, but 2 or 3 years ago. Well, no, 20 years ago, because we gave it to Bob. Anyway, I'm not sure.
Well, how did he make the bricks?
Well, they had a kiln, and I suppose, because I've never seen any evidence of it around here, but they had a kiln that was brought in, and they made the bricks just the way they're. I don't know. I don't have the recipe for it. Maybe you do. But I think it takes a certain amount of iron to get a good red brick. And Grandfather Corron was not at all happy with the first bricks that they made. They used the slough area, which is over, well, near the fence line. There are lots of slough areas, but that one was the one they used, and I think he thought, well, it was covered with trees and probably a lot of undergrowth where they could use it. I don't know how much. He said, Grandpa Corron told me that they made 100,000 bricks before they laid any. But when they started laying them, they found that these were kind of mud-colored. You may have seen them in various houses. And he didn't like the color of them. So they went over in back of the big barn and used that field. I often feel sorry for the people who had to count the bricks. We had a friend who came here, one of Sally's friends from Oregon, came and he counted the bricks in the north end. And now I can't remember, and he can't remember either how many he counted. But I think, did it mathematically like you would, but he couldn't even remember what he had said, and I didn't write it down. So I didn't think it was that important, but now I'm curious. That's what happens to you when you get involved in things like that. The house itself is interesting.
They did not build the house all at once. They kind of did it they built it in stages.
As far as I can tell, I would say they must have built the skeleton. The east wing and the west wing do not have basements under them. And the kitchen didn't until, I think Bob was in high school, in the 20s. He and the hired man dug out these, what they called, in my day, the big stones were the foundation, and they brought out these two big stones. That was one of our favorite stories, because when we moved up here, Dave was only 4 and the other kids were a little bit older, but we had a lot of toys, and Grandma had used the one room in the basement for fruit, so we took the fruit out. Well, the fruit was pretty well gone, but we took out everything there. But we tried to move these stones. Niggerheads is the term they used back in those days. But if they couldn't get them through some of the doors because they're too big to go through the doors. So they'd have to go the long way around. So the story was that if we didn't have anything else to do that day, the men would work on moving the stones from about the same time we had to put a new furnace in. So there were always things to do. And there's still things that we aren't doing, but wish we could.
Mm-hmm. I wanted you to tell us a little about, another question about the house. Did they hire a mason to help lay the bricks? Do you know about that?
I have no idea about that. I have no training. I wish I'd brought the paper. When you see the prices, I've got it somewhere, but I'd have to.
Did Robert Corron, did great-grandpa Robert Corron keep a record of what he spent on things?
Yeah, I have a lot of several account books, and it's very interesting because in the 1940s, I think they were paying $4 for 100 pounds of beef, or something like that, and it's just kind of amazing. I believe they bought 6 chickens for $20. They probably didn't buy them all at once. No, it was less than that. I meant to say that because it is important. I've saved it, but
Maybe we could
right
pull,
now I can't.
we could pull that out sometime and take a closer look at that. That would be very
Yeah,
interesting.
it's and labor and like $1 a day for a team. It was a different time.
Something else I wanted to ask you was if you could tell us about the Corron Church, what the story is to the church.
Well, it was a neighborhood church, and it was very close to our line, and the Plato Township line. And I showed you the picture, didn't I, of the paper I found in amongst the letters from the Civil War, and didn't I show you that picture?
I'm not sure I've seen that one.
Bob, did you get that picture of the Campton, Plato, 15th Cavalry?
Oh, the list, all the ladies did this list of where all the different battles they fought?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Oh,
I've
you know
seen.
what I mean.
Yeah.
Where is it?
It's in back of the bed in the my room there. The head. You put things wherever. I have a lot of big, not a lot, but a few, big atlases. And I don't know if you're familiar with the 1871 atlas of.
I've seen reprints of that.
Well, the reprints are so nice and handy. But here's this big, mine was my grandfather's, and it is just gone to pieces. But that is one of the things that I think we ought to send to a museum. But I love this P. Ridge. And I think in one of his letters,
Thank you. Do you want to keep it?
If you want to just set it down over there would be fine. Thanks, Bob.
but it looks like they might have used some of this lettering that they used for bags and things like that back in, I'm sure at Garfield you've seen a lot of that sort of thing. Otherwise, I don't know. It's kind of a parchment. And it was all folded, as you can see, when it was in this box of letters. And I pulled it out. I think I had just found it. And Eve was here one time, Sherry's mother-in-law. And she said, oh, you should take care of that. You should straighten it out. Well, we have lots of old picture frames. One thing about the family, they did have a lot of pictures taken. I mean, pictures of the senior members of the family. Anyway, that's why it's framed, because you told me to. I didn't know anything about it. I just knew it was interesting, but I think it's very definitely made. You see, it's the Plato and Campton. I think the church at that time was not here. It was, I think they worshipped in what they call the Stone Schoolhouse, which is a little bit east of on Corron Road, not on Corron Road, on Silver Glen Road, east of Corron, about a half a mile. And I think that was I think the stone part, it wasn't a stone building, as I understand it. It was the name of the family who lived there. But I had to get an atlas to find that out. Anyway, I'm digressing, but I don't don't know exactly where you want me to stop because
It was not unusual in the 1840s when people were just getting settled in this area, that initially they were worshiping in schoolhouses. 'Cause I've heard
schoolhouses,
that-
well, first homes,
Yeah,
log cabins, and
yeah.
then they would go on to possibly schoolhouses. Actually, the Methodist Church in Plato was, well, later they built this one here as a branch of it. And then there was another one in East Burlington. And there were the three churches, and they always got somebody from Garrett Seminary as a pastor. He'd go from these churches. And when they come out on the train. So it was early in the 20th century, I think, when they had these churches. Well, and then when cars came in, people could go to the denomination they wanted to, and the poor little country churches, many of them closed up, just as the Corron Church did, I think. I think some of the material from the Corron Church went to South Elgin Methodist Church. And the Burlington, East Burlington, probably a lot of it went to the Burlington Church. I don't know all those things. I'm guessing. But that's pretty much the way it happened. But my mother-in-law, who was born in the late 80s, I'm not sure exactly. But anyway, she said that she was confirmed in the Plato Church, but it was a Lutheran service. The Methodist Church in Plato was the only one in Plato of that nature. But at that time, apparently, they were still sharing buildings. And that would be, as I say, in almost the beginning of the 20th century. And then when the railroads came in, that made so much a difference. If you're interested in railroads, and if you're interested in roads, they make such a difference. Now, for example, Wasco wasn't there until the railroad went through in the late 90s. Plato was there, but they moved the town down to meet the railroad. But where the cemetery is, if you know Plato at all, the cemetery is, the church now is across from it. It used to be a part of the place. The church there was built in 1859. So, as I say, railroads did make a lot of difference. Most of the what we call the back towns in Kane County, you know what I mean by back towns, away from the river, and most of them were might have different denominations, but they, in horse and buggy, you couldn't go that far to do the whole bit. So that's why the big change came after the automobile came into being. Does that answer?
Oh, that's a very interesting perspective. Thank you. You were showing me, last time after Dave left, you were showing me the window from the Corron Church. Would you mind if we brought that in?
Yeah, you know where it is.
Yeah.
I don't move very well, as you may have observed.
This is such a lovely, lovely artifact here.
You want me to hold it?
Oh, I'll kind of hold, I'm not in the picture here, am I?
Wait a
Dave,
minute.
I don't need to be in it.
I don't know, is that the right side or is the other? I never did know. I tried to clean it up, but I didn't want to change the wood. It was an inside window. The doors had, I think this had about 6 or 7. And in the process, they were stored out in the barn here when they took the church down. And we got 3 whole ones. I cut it, my son and his friend worked on it. Before Christmas Eve day. Anyway, he did a big, don't fall in the, it will probably hurt you much more than,
Yeah, I don't want to break anything.
anyway, I gave one to Flora, Bob's sister, and what do I mean? I gave them because they weren't mine to give, but he got 3 out, and one went here and one went to the Nortons, and I imagine Barbara Thames probably has it. She lives up near Hampshire. But, and I imagine Dorothy took hers with her to Alabama. So they're traveling around. If they took them, I'm not altogether sure that they would, maybe just a piece of junk. But to the family, they meant a lot.
When the church first got started, Mr. Corron donated the land and allowed the neighbors to build the church. How did that work?
I'm not sure. He had a list. I'm not sure even where that is. But I think the church cost something like $2,000. It was built in 1985, and it had no basement under it.
What year was it built, Lucinda? I'm sorry.
1885. Taken down in, I think it was 1927. Either 27 or 29, I'm not sure which. Bob told me, but I've forgotten. The story of my life.
What I find interesting about that is how it relates to the stories you've told me about the reason why Robert Corron left Virginia to begin with. Apparently he was a very religious man. And why did old senior Robert Corron, why did he leave Virginia?
Well, it was a time for people moving out. And if you've been in that part of the country, are you familiar with Greenbrier County? Or it's, what is